Nice.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Conversations by the Sea, podcast about mental health, freelancing, running a business, and all your good stuff like that. This week we've got another guest. We've got Scott McMullen of Bedrock 42. He's on the screen.
Hello.
Hi, Scott. You all right?
Panic for a second. I think I got your number wrong.
What? It's 42, yeah?
Yeah.
It
is 42, yeah.
Where does
For
that
branding purposes, the 42 is discontinued now, but will live on in company's house.
What did it come from, 42?
So we do analytics, and we wanted to, we were coming up with a name, and Bedrock stuck out because it's like strong, foundational. But then Bedrock Analytics was already a company in the States. So we were like, let's put a number at the end, and 42 is the meaning of life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, life for universe and everything.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that's where it came from.
So is that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah.
It could be that, or 3.142 would have been a good one as well. Bedrock 3.142.
That would have been a lot.
Pi.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So, we've got Scott here, who we know through various means. Also, you're a small business owner, and you kind of work in a complementary way to us, because obviously, as you might know if you know us, for listeners, we do content and front-end web design stuff, and Scott does, CRO and analytics and stuff. Do you want to just talk a little bit about what Bedrock does?
Yeah, sure. So we help improve the conversion rates of clients' websites, basically. And we do that two ways. So understanding their customer journeys through data, like where people drop off, tracking customer behavior, and then also through qualitative research. So we do like user testing and create personas. And basically we try and service the customers' problems. So we try and solve customers' problems, basically. So we
Is it mostly e-commerce, or do you do all types of sites?
We do all sorts, really. Mostly lead generation at the moment.
Right, yeah.
But we do e-commerce and stuff as well. We have a few e-com clients too.
How many people are in the Bedrock team now, Scott?
Four at the moment. We're currently hiring another person, a graduate from Northumbria, which is exciting. So that's the first real hire that will not be a friend of mine.
Don't worry. I mean, we just hired Craig's mom, so we're all about the nepotism and content by the sea.
Yeah, bless her.
You've worked with your mom before, haven't you, Scott?
Yeah, so we set up a business in the Northeast, Made Up North. It's an online cleaning company. The cleans aren't done online, but you can book them online, and it was the first company in the Northeast where you could book a clean online, fully remote, without engaging with anyone. So we were meant to be the Uber for cleaners, but then Hassel came along with their millions of funding. But yeah, it's still going well. It's still a good company.
It's got really good reviews. I remember looking it up when you last time we talked. It seems to have a really positive reputation, which is half the battle in the world of it takes 2 minutes to leave a bad Google review. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we're still 5 stars. 5 stars out of 5 stars. Yeah.
So does your mom still do that? Is she like the?
Yeah, she still owns it full time. She's the powerhouse. Yeah, keeps it in tick. So yeah, it's been quite a struggle for her over COVID, just because of schools going back and forth, so with staffing issues, and then COVID, obviously, like if a mate has to isolate them, trying to send someone else in, and it's been a whole big mess. But hopefully we're on the other side of that now. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think we're all hoping that now.
Yeah.
When did you set up Bedrock?
So it's kind of like my freelance project for a little bit, like how most of these things start. What year is it? 2021. So 2.5-3 years ago, I was doing some freelance, and then it didn't really become like a formal business until I hired Richard. Probably pretty much a year ago now. And that's when it became a fully fledged business. So no longer my little freelance project, which is quite scary when you've other mouths to feed that depend on you.
Yeah, it's a very similar position to us, because I started Content by the Sea as a kind of freelance thing. And it was always like, if it was just me, the only amount of money you have to make to feed yourself and look after yourself and pay your half of whatever is minimal. But then when it becomes 2 people and other people become reliant on the income of the business as an entity, that's when the pressure's really on to
Yeah.
provide and to sell and
Yeah.
get good rates and stuff. And you can't sacrifice on client rates when the money's like important.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a scary time. I don't know how you did it, but I just tried to build up like a stack of cash, because when you start a new business, like revenue streams like up and down so dramatically, especially in analytics when it's project based and not really retainer based. But no, it's worked out quite well.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing a similar thing. Like I worked from home. Well, I worked like for a company that I worked at in Sydney from the UK. So I was like still employed by them, and then kind of picked up a few bits. But we're probably 50% project and 50% retainer. So it's like even on a month, if worst case scenario, there would be no projects, which never happens. But even if that were to happen, there'd still be like the base retainer amount on copy, because there's always people wanting X amount of blogs or case studies or something a month. So
yeah,
it's a good balance to have.
Yeah, I think we didn't probably build up enough of a cushion. We just sort of, Ellen had a few really busy months and I was working. It was when COVID had like hit. So I was already like, I was becoming quite cozy with working from home. Again, like I knew my old agency would want us back in the office when they could. And I just didn't, I just didn't really ever want to go back to like that. So.
Did you always work in-house, Scott, or did you do agency side as well? You did both, didn't you?
Yeah, I did both.
Yeah.
So I used to be a secondary school teacher, but when I finished that, I went in-house. So we started the company with my mum, and then we started spending money in Google and didn't really know what was happening to it. And then I read a few books and was like, all right, okay, this is how this works. This is pretty cool. And then, Silverbean had a job come up in analytics and optimization. And I was like, yeah, I'll take a punt at this. And then I was agency side for 3 years. Then I moved in-house for a very short spell, 6 months in total.
You worked where I used to work. I don't want to say the name. But,
oh, did you? Yeah.
The place that gave me the worst PTSD of my life. Maybe we'll talk about that off camera. But yeah, I've written a lot of content about gaslighting and bullying in the workplace and stuff, and it's all that place that you also worked at. So
yeah, cool. Right.
Obviously not at the same time. I think you came after I left.
What made you leave secondary school teaching? Because that's sort of, a lot of people see that as like, you finish uni and it's like that's your career job. Like what happened? What was the story there?
I hated it, is the short story. It just wasn't a good fit. It works for some people, doesn't work for others, didn't work for me.
What subjects were you teaching?
I was teaching like ICT and computing, and like I was just teaching stuff that did not matter. Like I was like, this is pointless. But I just didn't I hated school when I was there. So I didn't realize, like, why did I think going back in a different capacity would change things? And it didn't. Yeah, it's like very structured and there's not a lot of room to be creative because there's a ton of, like, there's a huge workload on you. So sometimes it's just getting stuff done. So there's not a lot of room to be creative or try new things. People will tell you different, but at the end of the day, you're working like 60, 70 hours a week. You can't be creative under crunch like that. So
yeah, no, it doesn't sound appealing, because originally my first, like, that was my plan when I finished uni, and I ended up like getting into it, and now I'm quite grateful when I hear teachers talk about teaching. Like, sounds like a pretty thankless career and like fairly low paid for the amount of hours people put in and stuff. Like, this doesn't sound worth it at all.
yeah, like price per hour, I pay the cleaners I work with get paid better. Like whenever you actually do the sum to work out what you're getting paid per hour, and the stress that goes with it, the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you anything that you learned from like teaching, do you still do like teaching and coaching and stuff, but in your capacity, like when you do your talks and stuff, do you feel like that's kind of given
I do it all the time actually. So it wasn't completely wasted. So we run training for certain clients, and like I'll use the same structure that I used in teaching, like the learning outcomes, and then scaffolding the lessons for people of different ability and stuff. So a lot of that's worked out quite well. It's also nice from a presentation point of view, because it's quite scary, like, trying to teach like a class of 30 kids. I I used to do talks for the university as well to tell kids how amazing university was when I worked in their marketing department. Sometimes you talk to like 300, 400 kids in a university lecture hall. It was terrifying.
Yeah, I did a bit of that when I was at that job. And it was all about like women in the motor trade and stuff, and different kinds of jobs and stuff. And it was all very like, just like, I went to a school and there must have been 300 kids or something, like so many. It was a high school, just like staring at me in this lecture theatre. And I was like, yeah, so it's not just Facebook. And I'm just so nervous about it.
It's so scary. The first one I done, I had to leave halfway through the talk and go and throw up in a toilet and just play it off like everything was normal. I just had like a panic attack, like an internal panic attack where my vision started going blurry. And I was like, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. And I was like, I need to throw up. I was like, I'll be back in a second. Room full of like 350 high school students from across the Northeast. Went to the toilets, had a little moment to myself, and then came back. It was terrible. God, it was one of the worst parts of my life.
But on you for coming back. Yeah. Like, I think I probably would have just left.
I always get the panic attack, anxious feeling before the talk, and then during it, I go into some kind of like robot mode where like I'm not really there, and then afterwards I go like, God, what was I so nervous about? Like it went fine, but it's like as if a part of my brain takes over where it's like, okay, now let's do this. So like for the duration of the bit,
I do that as well.
The anticipation before it knocks me sick. Like even online events and stuff.
I think both of me and Owen are both like anticipatory anxiety people. Like we always get like just before a call we'll have to like go to the toilet or like, you know, like it's always get nervous.
Oh, the nervous pee. Yeah. I know that.
Always.
Well. Yeah.
Do you want to ask Scott some more of these questions? Well, I mean, I don't want it to just be like question and answer, but obviously we've just talked about like the training side of it and stuff. So is that a part of it, the business that you're still really passionate about, or do you like to do the delivery, or, you know, what's the bits that you really enjoy about running a business, and maybe
I really like
you didn't do?
So I quite enjoy the training still. It's a part of the business we're looking to grow out, but the part that's my favorite is probably the strategy side of things. And then really digging into like the strategic direction that marketing teams are taking or the business is taking, and how we can help support that through data and what we do, obviously. So I really like getting into the nitty gritty of the strategy. Execution, don't care about that so much, which is funny as I'm not a details person and I work in analytics.
But I think that's probably quite valuable, because I imagine that a lot of people who do work in analytics are detail people and often maybe can't see the wood for the trees or can't see the strategy behind the thing. So you get a lot of people who are like the grafters, but not as many people like you who understand the importance of analytics, but maybe can't see how it fits in as part of a wider strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Bit of a USP.
I think that's right. Yeah. Because I ran a business as well. Obviously, with my mum, I kind of got that business head as well. Whereas a lot of people from marketing or career people may not have that experience. I'm very good at tying like business ideas and marketing ideas back to actual like bottom line ROI. Yeah. It's like, is this going to make an impact? Because when I was spending money in Google, I was like, is this what's happening here?
Yeah.
Are they just taking my money and telling me things are working, or is there something deeper at play here? So that's the part I like the most, coming up with the strategies, trying to get people around them, doing the user research is great fun as well. Have you guys done much of that?
Yeah, it's normally you do that, don't you?
Yeah, and then we work with like a client who does a lot of that kind of thing, so I write about it a lot as well. So it feels like probably I'm deeper immersed in it than my actual experience would say.
But yeah, we've done it for people as part of it's sometimes you encounter people who like don't actually know who their audience is, and sometimes you encounter people and they're like, right, well, the website needs to target these people, and then other times you think, God, they need a bit of a time sitting down where you think, who are you actually selling to? Because they just don't even know. Like, so
I think we use it more in like the pitch, like pre-sale, because obviously like our main things are producing content and like building websites, and so for the sites we tend to try and do like a bit of audience research and like, you know, see how like pages are influenced by search volumes based on user types. And for the content, like I like to do like a user persona that's like much more you'd hate it since you're a data person, because it's completely based
persona
on
is data, right? If
but
it's qualitative, it's fine.
So I don't so much base it on data as much as I base it on like what the client will tell me about each type of user. I'll go away and try and think of like what those people care about, and then like write content around those cares. So it's a lot. In a way, it's like when you just mentioned before, like, is it like worth, I want to do this thing, is it worth the money, like is it going to drive anything? Sometimes for clients I'll just tell them it's not worth them doing something like that, because it is kind of just it's a way to help frame the thinking, and a way to help frame.
It depends on how much they already have.
I think it's good for people.
A client will come to you with a big marketing strategy document that someone else has done for them, and they literally just need the copy. But then other times they're like, actually need a marketing strategist, and they think they just need the copy.
Sometimes I think when you're writing like content as well, like some clients are willing to like invest the time and budget into like the theory of it, and some of them aren't. Some of them just want you to write like X amount of pages or products,
and like interview time as well. Like if you're working with somebody, we've got some clients who are happy to like really put the interview time in with us, and like we can really get into like understanding what the case study is, or understanding what the point of it is, whereas others will just say, just write some blog topics based on, we'll just pull some titles off, low search competition, high potential volume, like just some of those like good blog topics. It really depends on how invested they are in it.
Yeah. I think when I'm like, now that we're talking to you, I'm thinking more about like how we probably should try and use more data in like, because I'm like pretty comfy with analytics, but I don't maybe get to use it as much because it's hard. It tends to be that we're not doing enough work with the client to justify going in and building any analytics based plans. You know what I mean? Like there's very few people who would need that level of involvement, but yeah.
But we do have some clients who maybe come to us and say, like, we've done their sites and we're doing content for them, maybe a landing page or a blog or a newsletter, but they're like wanting to B2B, because mostly everything we do is B2B, almost everything. And they want like to know, it's like lead generation. They're like kind of like, well, what's going on? We can be like, okay, we can help you with the lead magnet, like creating the content on the landing page, but sometimes it's determining like what success looks like, I guess. And that's where like what you guys do comes in.
Yeah. It's good. It doesn't need to be like quantitatively based. Usually my last recommendation is to base something on actual like numbers data that people classically think of, because all that tells you is how well someone's performing, or where in the process people drop out. So where the biggest points of friction are. It doesn't actually tell you why things are going wrong or how you should fix them. The best source is that qualitative data. One really good thing that we've started doing, we've been recommended in a book, can't remember which one it was, but basically they would find out the popular pages, or like just the homepage of the website, go to Gumtree or Craigslist or whatever it is and say, we're looking to hire user testers, can you fill in this form? You'll be paid 20-25 quid per test or whatever it is. And then you like can qualify the people. So say you're working for a coffee company, you ask them like 5 random questions, one of them being the one you care about, and you can get the correct segment into like your user testing. So through a Google form, you say like, do you have coffee every day, or how often do you have coffee? And you're like, right, these are the people we care about asking questions to. Then you can just drop them on the website and say, look, you're looking to buy some new coffee or whatever the scenario is. Just go through this and narrate over the top the problems that you face on the way. That's just like a wealth of information and golden nuggets that you can take away and start like building your personas around. Some other good data as well is actually, have you ever seen Spark Toro?
I've heard of it.
Ran Fishkin's new... So Rand Fishkin, the guy that made Moz, essentially.
I love a bit of Rand Fishkin. Like my old, like me and Richard used to work with a guy called Craig Bradshaw, who's a lecturer now at Northumbria, and like he was like he taught me a lot of what I know, and he used to love Rand. We used to like watch Whiteboard Friday every Friday. Had some mustache, didn't he, Rand Fishkin?
He still does the thing, yeah.
You know who he is?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Do you know?
He is like one of the biggest influencers in SEO. He's like, he used to do Whiteboard Fridays.
Yeah. Look,
every Friday.
You must know this guy.
Yeah,
You've seen him, but you'll have seen him.
Yeah, probably, but it's not like I'm not like sitting watching
this guy.
Oh right, yeah, I do know that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never watched any of his stuff, but yeah.
He's very extra and American,
I've got a
but
picture of
that's
him on
kind
the
of his
screen here.
personality.
For the
Yeah.
benefit of the viewers.
His quiff's getting kind of high now, isn't it?
It's a big old quiff, yeah.
It's
You need
getting
to
big.
store that knowledge under something.
Yeah.
But anyway, Spark Toro, it's kind of a way to find influencers and influence in media within a niche. So you can stick in your website or a website that you know people like or interests or whatever, and then it will spit out like a big list of everything they're into, those types of people. So they go to this website, that website, they listen to these podcasts, they do these things on the internet. And while it might not be like, oh, this is your buyer's a male who's 40 years old and likes to play golf or whatever, you can at least see how these publications are talking to the same people.
Yeah.
And then that can help inform stuff as well.
Yeah.
We used to use
the camera before you stop because we're at 20.
Yeah. We used to use like YouGov Profiler and stuff. But
that doesn't.
I don't think it even exists in the same function it used to anymore. But we used to use stuff like that as well. And I think when you build up a good we'd do it if a client needed us to do it. It just hasn't really come about that we've needed to do one that extensive yet. But yeah, that's
and also it's always the balance between, like you've just said, we'd do it if, but then there's a balance of like outsourcing versus like, is it worth us doing, or is it worth us like outsourcing to just guys? It's the same as like you guys could write content, but then you're like, well, is it a good use of my team's time to write content? It's like the same thing where you
do you have content people in house? Because I notice you've got it as a service on your site.
So we do like copy, like SEO copy. So we don't like produce like big long form pieces. So we could do like product pages, like short articles, like how-tos. But yeah, we've been using freelancers so far. It's something that we don't really want to offer, but sometimes the client might not have a content person, but they want to do like.
Well, if you need more people who
yeah, hopefully that's what the grad we're hiring for. We're looking for someone with like an English copywriting background.
Oh yeah,
that'll be a good experience for them as well.
Definitely.
Especially getting to work with Richard. Just for all the podcasts, Richard, one of Scott's employees, he's one of my best mates, and full disclosure.
Maybe
so I've got a vested interest in making Scott look good.
Yeah. Or Richard will come after you, yeah.
I know. I don't think Richard will ever watch it, will he? He's not a...
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe he will. Maybe, are you watching this, Richard?
Nice.
Right. What I was going to ask you about is getting on to the subject of Richard. You said he was your first hire. So you've got 4 members of staff, which obviously means you've got a lot more than we have. And obviously our member, my mum's just like helping in a support capacity a day a week. What kind of, what like were the considerations around hiring, like not just doing it for yourself and like growing the business in that direction? Like was the thinking like, did you originally think I'm just going to do this myself as my own thing? Or as soon as you decided to like make a full-time job of it, were you like, well, I need other people to be able to make this my full-time thing?
Yeah, there was like a combination of things. Probably the biggest one being I was getting really lonely because doing it by yourself is really boring. It's like you might have client calls and stuff, but day to day you've got no one to bounce ideas off or be a bit silly with, or just bounce stuff off of, basically. So that's kind of the biggest reason. The second reason being the kind of field I work in, like conversion rate optimization and analytics. One person cannot do all the stuff.
Yeah.
There's too many skills that are required to put it all together. So I knew I could never be a specialist. I could consult from a high level strategic point of view, but in terms of implementation, I could only do so much. At the time, we had lots of analytics work. Well, I had lots of analytics work and was foreseeing getting more. But there were a few conversion rate optimization contracts kind of coming up. And yeah, I knew I was good at CRO as well as analytics. And I also knew Richard was really good at analytics. So I was just like, let's take on Richard to kind of take a bit of pressure off me in the business. I can concentrate on trying to grow the other service so we can kind of bring things all together. And that was the main reason. And then the next person after that was Phyllis. She's a UX specialist. I'm crap at doing wireframes. It's like black and white boxes and like a little bit of color here and there, but nothing that's pixel perfect or looks good. So I brought her in to do the more like the grafting on the ground level from that point of view. And then the latest one was Liam. So he's a really old friend of mine, one of my best friends. And he's from the technical SEO background, like SEO strategy background as well. And that's kind of how it came all together. Why I wanted to hire people was because I wanted to, first of all, have a little team, like a work fam. And then secondly, I knew I couldn't do it all. But I think that's kind of so basically what we do is it's kind of like a new wanky term, but it was around about 5 years ago. It's called search experience optimization. So SEO is not really a thing anymore in our minds because it's so jumbled together with the CRO piece. Because Google ranks you more and more based on user experience, like how fast is your website? Are you staying on the website a long time? Are you viewing another website afterwards because this website didn't solve your problem? And that's what businesses are for, right? They're there for solving problems. So that's kind of what we're hanging our hat on now, is like we work across this whole search experience optimization. So looking at user problems in search and what people are looking for, qualifying them for the businesses we work with if they're a good fit for these problems. And then we're optimizing that whole journey from the results page itself to making sure the content's correct and answers the question, that people are going deeper into the website, and then they're eventually converting.
Do you find that like within your industry, other maybe say SEO agencies or agencies in similar space, do you feel like you like that's like the current thought process, or do you feel like there's still a lot of people back in the link built, like links are everything, like your older school SEO kind of? What's the current pace that everyone's moving at, or everyone moving slightly differently?
I think people are moving this way slowly, but there's like the classic early adopters. And so like I still feel it's at that stage now, like it's not mass market. Like,
I think it's because we're moving away from this, like for the last like 5-8 years there's been like fewer and fewer quick wins in SEO, hasn't there? Like 10 years ago there was a lot more quick wins, and now there's like even
you just
like
stuff some words in. And
I think like I've probably got first-hand experience of this because the first like big agency I worked at, me and Richard worked at, like Craig, my mentor, he was he said like years and years ago that like it's just about like user experience, like everything is about Google just trying to serve the most relevant result to satisfy your query. And that was like
Google's mission statement, right?
And that was like 2015 2014 we were talking about that stuff. But I think the reason it's like a slow adoption is probably because commercially it's easier to sell like X amount of links, X amount of like these big agencies work on that kind of thing. They'll just be like, oh well, we'll get you X amount of links at X amount of domain authority with X amount of blogs and keywords with this. It's harder, I think, to sell like an esoteric like it's not like a tangible thing you can show someone, because it's a lot of theory crafting, and it's a lot of like, I suppose that's why what you guys do is really interesting, because you're offering like hard numbers as well as like you've got a theory that's backed up by hard numbers. It's
exactly, on that topic, do you find that it's a lot of like setting expectations for clients as well? Because say like you're pitching for a job and the client is also speaking to another like agency that does something similar, and they're saying, well, that agency is saying they can get me to the top of Google no matter what, and you're like, well, it's not that simple. And like even though we don't do SEO, we just do content like SEO driven content is like the way we would word it. People still come to us and say, oh, so and so told me that they can get me to the top of Google no matter what, and they can get me this, and they kind of people making promises, and then we're having to explain to them, well, it's not always that simple. And it's just I feel like within the industry there's so much like not cowboy, well, cowboys, like there's a lot of, do you still feel like that? I mean,
there's a lot of cowboys.
Like SEO in itself is known as
it's
cowboys.
So I think your first question was like around like how was it like pitching against other people that are doing this. It's usually been pretty easy for us because new stuff's sexy, right?
Yeah.
So, and everyone's now more educated, and everyone like that's worth their salt in the market and understands that Google are moving towards this new way of ranking people. And they already have, they've been doing it for years. But like Core Web Vitals has just came out. There's algorithm updates all the time, and people know Google's getting smarter. So yeah, it's not really, because we're based on data, everyone loves that. They're like, oh, there's got actual data here. And the traditional marketeers are like, oh, so you're going to do customer research as well. It's like none of these other agencies are talking about customer research or kind of actually figuring out the customer problems. Because that's really at the heart of it. Like I said before, it's like we help solve customers' problems through the company's website and then their offering as well. So it's just joining together that search intent and understanding what the search intent is, like how many thousands of people search for how many calories will I burn when I'm skipping, because there's a new client, Everjump, we're working with. They want to be the skipping ropes, but for like Peloton for skipping ropes. So they've got like hardware.
That's a cool idea.
It's cool. So they've got like counters and the handles. They've got
I
an
used to
app.
have one of those. Skip rope with counter in.
Did you?
Yeah. That's the thing that they used to like. Obviously, it was just an analog counter. I didn't need. There was no such thing as smartphones.
I remember those. I think.
But yeah, you could, and also one of those ones with the ball on the end, and you put it around your ankle. Boop, 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 that one.
Oh yes,
that stuff. See, that could be a good product offering.
Couldn't imagine you skipping.
Pogo stick, skipping, all of that stuff. I did. I think you used to go outside before the internet, you know.
I'll have to give you my skipping rope, see how you get on.
You can't skip.
No, I'm not very good at skipping. It's quite embarrassing for a guy who's done like martial arts for years and years, and sometimes I'm in like a kickboxing gym and everyone's skipping to warm up, and I'm like, I can skip, just not like you know, like a proper boxer. Like, just I hate it, so I've never invested good time in it. Anyway,
but anyway, Everjump skipping company.
Yeah.
So it's like it's joining together the problems that people that this skipping rope company can solve. So like how many people or how many calories can you burn when you're skipping? Very top of the funnel, but a problem people are looking for the answer to.
Yeah, that's how I try and like illustrate, like whenever we're asked to do like SEO driven content, which is kind of how I always do it. Like I always say to people, I'm not an SEO, but I always try and like consider search intent with everything that I do, and like all the content I create has a strategic thinking around it. And it's kind of good to know that I'm doing it the right way, because if you're saying it, who is someone I respect in the industry, like it must be right. But yeah, that's how I would do it as well. I would get like, you know, the top level questions people ask around skipping and around fitness in general, and then see how you could relay that to like key pages on the site and stuff. It's really good that we've talked about like some general industry thinking though, because I think a lot of most of it, like our podcast obviously is heavily about like freelancing and running your own business and stuff, and I think a lot of people could stand to benefit from not thinking about SEO as this like rigid you know, just gotta like stuff keywords into a page and blah blah blah, and you know, I've got to be top of Google. Like it's much better to think of it like you're saying, like as a user experience thing. Like do these pages that I'm creating sort of match people's intent that would lead them to my site? You know what I mean? Does it all work together to like
kind of taking the fear away from SEO as well, because like we have worked in marketing, but a lot of the people who listen to the podcast, watch the podcast, like they run their own business, but maybe they're strict copywriters, or they do something completely different, illustration, design, or even less, not even online. I like that. I like the idea of taking away the kind of, which I think is something that we want to do with SEO, with any bit, but particularly things that feel web design is one big area where I feel like a lot of the professionals in the industry benefit from pulling the wool over the eyes of the client, and they'll go like, with the amount of customers that I encounter that don't even have access to their own WordPress sites, and they're like, oh, my developer said that I wouldn't know how to do it, and I'm like, if you can send an email, you can like log into WordPress on a, you know, you can even give the person access so that they can't touch anything. You can give them subscriber access or editor access, teach them how to upload their own testimonials, and I do it all the time. And sometimes they'll turn around and say, nah, I just want you to do it. But the fact that we've given them the option to learn how to upload their own blogs or change a photo. They go, oh, I'm not even allowed to change a photo. My web designer won't let me. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake! Like, if you've got a website that's like a standard brochure site built with a theme, and if they break it, they get in touch with you. But there's not much breaking that can do from uploading a testimonial to a carousel. Like, it's not. I'm not saying build your own landing pages. I think I would have a heart attack if someone did that. But just taking away the complexity of the issue of the technology and making them feel like, oh, actually, I could, like, and most of the time they don't want to do it themselves, but it's the idea that they know that I'm not like hiding it from them and just charging them loads of money for something they don't even understand. And that's something that's massive in our industry, I think, just the idea that,
absolutely,
like, the amount of people who are just like tricked into paying loads of money just for web hosting, and they don't even get, like, they're like, oh, they said I had to pay more for the SSL certificate or something. I'm like, let's
they're
go
free.
back to the person and say to them these words, and then the web designer gets like shits himself because they realize that the client's spoken to somebody who understands the words that they're using.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The technology's never been easier. Like, it's never been easier to go from bricks and mortar to selling stuff online. Just, you can do it in a day with Shopify.
Yeah.
Might not look pretty, but I mean, you can sell stuff online.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's like in a lot of ways now it's way harder to think about, like, if you were to start a business, to start a bricks and mortar business is way harder than to start a.
Oh God, yeah, that's a good point. Actually,
like,
I've never thought about that.
It's way easier now, I think, to be an online. Like, to me, the default choice now would be to be online rather than unless you were. I think some things specific, like, benefit specifically from maybe being able to, like, offer like a tangible pick up this item experience, but even then that stuff's going to change, you know, like AR, like augmented reality and stuff's going to change how people interact with stores and VR, and like we're just in the infancy of what technology can do in the future. It's quite an exciting time, I think, to be involved in this. And I also think, Scott, I don't know if you agree with me, that like to think of like business solutions instead of like just SEO, but more about experiences and like experiential, like user driven stuff is a better career path for people, because you know you end up sort of pigeonholing yourself if you just think about SEO. But I've been lucky enough to like always write content with like Google like strategy, like Google based strategy in my head. So I've always managed to like stay a little bit ahead of the curve with thinking, and I can help articulate that to people, rather than just, you know, someone who's still like 4 years later still thinks like all you have to do is build loads of links. And
you're kind of doing something with empathy and like the real human being in mind that's going to consume that, and it gives the work that you're doing more meaning, doesn't it, than just like write X amount of 100 words with X amount of keywords, and it just, and then when you start to see the results, it's that feeling of like, wow, what I did actually worked, and well, whatever the results are, or even if it's just feedback from the client, it's just that feeling of you've done a good day's work.
Well, I think it's probably even more reassuring for you because you just prove it exactly with data all the time. Whereas sometimes with content, it's like we either do it proactively or reactively. Like proactively, we also try and pull data to show things are working, like view amounts, bounce rates, stuff like that. But often it's just like, can you write this for us for this thing? And we don't get to prove the efficacy as much. So it must be quite nice to have the data to show like, I did this and it did this.
Yeah, it's a really good feeling to be able to go, that stuff we said would work actually worked. That was great.
Does that ever not happen though? Do you ever
all the time? All the time we'd be like, yeah, this A/B test we've backed it up with user research. We think this solution will really work. And it'll 20% less conversion rate. It's like, what happened there?
I feel like you can learn so much from those things because you've learned what didn't work, which is like helping you.
Although sometimes I do think like the weird thing about digital marketing, like any kind, is sometimes you just can't really work. Like, I don't know about you, Scott, but I feel like sometimes things go wrong and it's almost impossible to put your finger on why. It can be like, there's probably an explanation, but sometimes it can just be so like buried in minutiae that it's hard to find out exactly what went wrong.
Yeah, it is. It's quite difficult to work stuff out sometimes. If you don't go in with the idea that we're going to measure the impact of this, if you try to do it retroactively, good luck. It's like, Godspeed. If you go with that mindset of like, we're going to measure this before and after, or this is the process and how we're going to measure it. If you build that in, then it is reasonably easy to measure the impact.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have that or don't do that step, it's almost impossible sometimes to figure out what's actually went wrong. The time I see it happen most often is with new site launches. So there'll be companies and they'll spend like 2 million, 3 million redeveloping a site. This has happened with 2 clients that I've worked with and other stuff, but not in the site redesign. They've sent the site live. Conversion rate went down by 50% for one of them. The other by 20%. The website looked amazing, looked really nice, but like it was impossible to find things. They didn't do any user research around it.
We've got a kind of budget, like what are they spending the money on?
I know,
That's crazy.
Yeah, crazy. Like they just assumed that this new design looks a lot better. They were too close to the project to understand that people didn't know how to navigate around. Or
and it's like when the design team started or when the marketers started falling in the habit of like marketing for themselves, and it's like you get a lot of that in advertising and copy and packaging. You know, like you see stuff and you're like, a marketer wrote that for other marketers, or you see like the designer's done that for other designers. They've not thought about. I talk about like the example of like the you know the burger menus now. You're getting a lot of hamburger menus now on desktop, and like which look great because it's tidy. And for some companies, it works great because all the audience know what they're doing and they know that that's the menu. But so often there are companies whose average user age demographic aren't you know, they're using it, they're not going to understand, like, or they just think, what on
if
earth
you say click a burger to my mom, she's like, what burger?
Yeah,
we're not having burgers. We're not eating burgers for tea.
She wouldn't know, but on a phone she would. But the mentality on desktop, just like that's just like one small example where I'll say to people, and accessibility is one thing like I never stop talking about, and it's like, yeah, there's only so many sacrifices that you can make. Like design, if it's a balance between slick design and accessibility. For me, accessibility is always going to win, even though I'm a visual, you know, I like a good design. But
do you ever see the Eisenberg conversion rate optimization hierarchy? It's like Maslow's hierarchy, but for conversion.
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
It's like functionality is the base layer, so it's like the shit just isn't broken. So like just make sure your shit isn't broken. And the second layer is like that accessibility piece. Because like, well, me and you are wearing glasses here at the minute.
Yeah.
If you can't see stuff on the website, or you're colorblind, or you're completely blind, how are you ever, like, people go on websites that are blind?
Yeah.
Use them all the time.
Because like millions and millions of fully like registered blind people in the UK. I mean,
it's like the idea of like temporary disability, the idea of like the idea of it's not just the people who are with visual like it's not even just that. It's like there are so many different things that affect your ability to use a piece of you know, website or an app, that like people go, well, this, you know, there's only so many disabled people. Actually there's like 12 million. I'll put that in, I think it's 12 million in the UK alone, registered disabled people. Not I was
going to say that's only registered, and that's only like people that have like things defined as full disability.
Yeah.
There's still people like certain, like, you know, like certain people that are really old might struggle, like might not be registered disabled, but will struggle to see certain things.
Like accessibility is for everyone. It's not just for, it's not like a last thing, and it also needs to be consideration from the start, not just something at the end where you go, I'll just change that color. And
I think there's like a frustration angle as well to get accessibility, like just for like even if you like as able as they come, if a website takes like slightly longer than a competitor to do something, like if finding this button is a bit harder on this site versus this site, and the prices of the products are the same, guess which one I'm going to choose?
There is like a Norman Nielsen study done into like how long people stay on landing pages from the search results, and if you cannot communicate within 10 seconds that people are in the correct area, that you are an authority that can help solve this problem for them, or that they're in the right place,
and yet you still get so many PPC ads taking people to home pages. You get so many Facebook ads, or Facebook product ads. You click on them and it takes you to the homepage. And I'm like, I only want to look at that pair of shoes. I don't want to look at the homepage. And then you think, I can't be bothered to find them, and you swipe off.
That's almost a whole nother conversation though, about the difference between like how Google, how Google's getting smarter and like better at ranking search, making it harder to game it with SEO, but you can still pay Google to like enough money to like do well in their paid rankings, and then it gets a bit like unethical.
Well, let's
I
not
think.
go too much into that because I will make my camera go off.
All right. Well, I'll ask you a couple last
sure,
questions.
Sure, yeah.
One more question because I'm really paranoid about the camera going off.
Yeah. All right.
And I hate that editing when the camera's all messed up.
All right. Well, just what are the plans for the future, and like, have you got any advice for people listening about like running their own business and stuff?
Probably the biggest advice is the one that we've talked about. Just make everything customer centric and easy for people to do. That goes for any business, right?
Yeah.
It's like make it easy for your clients. Like, just make it easy for people. Take others' opinions into consideration. In terms of starting a business, just do it. Just give it a blast. There's never been an easier time to start a business. It's super low risk. And just be a specialist in one area. Like, just try and solve one problem really well. Don't try and do it all. Just try and solve one thing really well. Number one, because that's what you'll be recognized for and it's easy to communicate. But number two, from a process point of view and building the business, it just makes things a lot easier and a lot easier to scale. And then I think we touched already on like what we want for the future. So we want to remain a micro business, which is a business below 10 people. So I think we're going to top out about 9-10 people, because we feel like from an agency point of view, I've worked agencies that had like 70 people in it, one that had like 20-30 people in it. And once they start getting to that size, they're just impossible to do good work or like concentrate on certain thing or like niche down into something specific.
Yeah.
So we want
you
to,
as a business owner, become a bit of a glorified like HR manager as well. You're not like you just become the people handler.
Or just a salesman where you just want to get the sale and then you hand it off to other people.
Yeah. So I want to keep my finger on the pulse and like, be at the front of the industry as well. So that's the plans for the future. We're going to like keep small, but we're going to specialize in the search experience optimization. So helping businesses understand the problems people are searching for, what volumes there are around that, what they could realistically rank for, then help them prioritize their like content schedule or what they're creating from a strategic level, and then helping convert people, solve that problem once they get onto the website. So that's what we're going to concentrate on.
Sounds
awesome. Good. Yeah, I think we're the same on the way. Not like I don't think we ever want to have a like massive we never want to have an office. We never really want to have a big team. I don't like managing people, so
yeah, me neither.
I don't think that's ever going to be an R.
No, we both like the delivery of the work as well. Like that's part of the work that we're quite passionate about. So I've been doing a lot less delivery since Craig came on board on the content side. I still do the web stuff, but I've been doing some copy today, and I was like, oh god, it's ages since I actually wrote copy because I spent so long on other stuff. Now hopefully your man will be helping with the invoices and things. I'll be able to get back to doing the stuff I actually like.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'll turn the camera off because it's gonna kick off. So
all right. Well, thanks again for your time, Scott.
Thank you.
Check out Scott's.
Good talking.
Check him out on LinkedIn or on his website.